Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. Thanks for being with us. Well, today we're talking about the apartment market. It's been a crazy market. Will it continue? Well, we'll find out some more now. We're going to speak with Tom Aderhold. He is chairman of Aderhold Properties, and he's had an illustrious long career in the apartment industry. And Tom, thanks for joining us in Studio One today.
Well, thank you for allowing me.
We appreciate it. And I like to get a perspective from different operators and analysts on what they're really seeing, because sometimes the analysts, we're talking about the entire country. And I know you have a lot of communities around the Atlanta apartment market. What are you seeing for performance in your communities?
Well, right now we're seeing higher occupancies and better rental rates, which is about time, because the industry was hurting pretty bad there for a while, and it's recovered very nicely, and continues to move up.
Atlanta was one of those markets that was hit hard with the housing downturn, right? And I guess that you lost a lot of renters in that situation, right?
We did. We had a lot of people move out, and basically if you were in a Class A, most of the Class A properties, people would move out. So the people in the Class Bs would move to the Class As because the rental rates dropped. Then you had people in the Cs move up to the Bs, so it became a real interesting nightmare there for a while.
And are you seeing the opposite now as rents are going back up? Are you seeing people start to move back down? Or?
Yeah, we have seen that happen. We've also seen, we set a rule where if someone had a foreclosure on a home, but otherwise the record's good, we'll allow them to move into our properties and just ignore the fact that they had a foreclosure.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great, because if you look at everything else, it was fine.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, because, when I used to manage apartments, that's how I got started in the industry when I was young. And we wanted you to be able to pay the rent in 1 week's salary, 1 week's take home, pay the rent. But what kind of ratios are you guys using today?
We usually do 3 to 1. I mean, that works pretty well.
Yeah.
So that and making sure that the income is actually there, that's fun sometimes.
Right. Well, what do you expect moving forward for 2015, Tom? You expect the good times to continue rolling?
Well, I think it's going to continue on. I mean, you've got a lot of the baby boomers now starting to look at moving out of their private homes and moving into rental units. You have a fair number of parents who've had their children in the basement for a while saying, "Get out! It's time for you to move into your own home and get out in the marketplace."
Well, it's not my children in my basement are locked trying to get out. It's some other people. No, I'm kidding. There's no one locked in my basement.
Right.
So some of these parents are like, "Great, go ahead and go, right? Go rent an apartment, get out of here, right?
Yeah, please go away."
All right. Well, where are some opportunities today? I mean, some people might think the window is closed on investing in the apartment market, but if good times are still rolling, where are some opportunities?
It seems like infill is working pretty well in urban areas. You've probably seen a fair amount of apartment complexes that are Cs or worse being bought, torn down, and new product being built. You also have raw land being acquired and more apartments being put in, which works pretty well. It's just an infill product right now.
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing.
And as far as the values for these communities, how might these values be impacted by a rise in interest rates? I can't think, some discussions that maybe a year from now we might have, rates that are 1.5% or 1.25% higher in as soon as a year. How might that impact the apartment market? Is that window to build these projects or redevelop these projects, is that window still open?
I think it's still open. I mean, in looking at the rental rates and in looking at lenders, I remember building a couple of deals with 9% interest. I mean, come on. We're sitting here at 4.
That's nice.
Hello. Let's jump through that window a couple of times.
Yeah. I bought a triplex home when I was a young kid, and I think I paid 17% interest.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
Yeah.
It's great fun.
Yeah.
How they allowed us to do that, I'll never know.
Yeah. And I was selling apartments, and when we could get owner financing at 12%, we were like, woohoo.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. I remember mine first one was 10%.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing. And now you're getting rates as low as 4 on new projects, and
It's in the 4s, that's right, and some of them are as high as 6, depending on your length and so forth and so on.
yeah, that's interesting. So you expect those that if somebody's doing an exit cap rate for 3 years from now, that they're going to have enough demand, enough rate increase, enough rent increase that even though the cap rate may be a little higher, that they're still going to have a nice profit range.
I think that's probably true. A lot of it depends on our banking and regulators. I mean, that's gotten pretty severe, as we well know. I don't think it's the banker's fault. I think it might be the regulations, but that's an area for a whole nother subject.
Yeah, that is. We'll have a show on banking here soon. Well, stay with us. We'll have more on the apartment market. I'm Michael Bull. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll be right back. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you in part by your friends at Bull Realty. When your business requires proven performance, visit bullrealty.com or call 800-408-BULL. Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and this is the Commercial Real Estate Show. Today we're talking about the apartment market, and my guest is Tom Aderhold with Aderhold Properties here in Studio One in Atlanta. And Tom, you guys do a great job of adaptive reuse projects. Some of the projects you've done around Atlanta are just really, really impressive, beautiful older buildings, and that's kind of a different world, right? The new construction and buying old apartments. And so tell me, if an investor, a broker, someone out there is looking at potential adaptive use properties, I guess office, warehouse, those kind of properties that you can convert to apartments, what makes a good site? What makes a good property? How would you recognize it?
Basically, everything out there has potential. There are certain buildings which already are named, which are great ones to start with. However, when Sherman came through Atlanta, he did a fine job of removing some of the better structures, but there are still some out there. When we go in and take a look at one, it's a matter of what can we do with it. We have to take a lot of extra time to think out of the box as to what we're going to do. We really look at one carefully if everybody else is running away from it. Interesting.
So what price range per square foot, let's say for an office building, would you have to be under to start making some sense?
Well, that question's very hard to answer, because if a building is in pristine condition, we can pay a lot more because the renovation costs will be a lot less. So it's kind of all over the board with that, and obviously you get down to your NOI and your internal rate of return to make all those items work.
So the same thing on the cost of construction then, right? It's hard to really know and how do you gauge the construction cost of a project like that? Must be a lot more difficult to estimate, right?
It's different. It's not more difficult. It's just different. Some of the stuff we have timber and beams, and the beams and columns can be 18 inches wide, 12 inches long, thick, and 22 feet long. So finding those and realizing that each one of them costs $2,000 might make it a little more difficult to work with.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had a triplex when I was young that was built around the turn of the century, and when you would replace a door or something, you couldn't just go to Lowe's and get the door.
No.
I mean, sometimes I had to have them built, have them made, and that gets
absolutely
expensive.
Right. It gets expensive. In learning how to do adaptive reuse, you've got to get outside the box. You have to have engineers and architects who are willing to get out there and find multitudes of different ways to do things.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And also there's some tax incentives, right? Some tax credits and things with these adaptive use properties. What have you used?
There are. You've got historic tax credits, that's one. You have low-income housing tax credits, which is another, and you can combine those two. There are things such as facade easements, which is a technical piece that can be added to help the investors get a return on their money. The newest one is a new market, which I haven't used yet, but it is a combination of apartment homes and adaptive reuse with retail and so forth and so on.
And these tax credits and tax incentives, are they really imperative on these type of adaptive use projects?
Well, it's one of the things that the federal government did right. I mean, you can actually get return on your money added because of the tax credits themselves. That assists you in being able to compete with a normal standard stick built.
Yeah. And I guess when you're going in and you're doing adaptive reuse, you're really improving the area. Do the municipalities give you any help or any assistance when you're doing these projects?
They do. Here again, it depends on where it is. And a lot of times what we used to do is go into an area, find the darkest spot, and we're basically turning on a light.
Mm-hmm.
So you light up the center, then everything starts to grow around it. It works pretty well.
That's interesting. And what about the entitlement and zoning and permitting process? Is that, I guess it's a little different, maybe a little more difficult than just getting new construction projects rolling?
I don't know that if it's more difficult, but communication is key.
Yeah.
You've got to get with the neighborhood and tell them what you're planning to do. You've got to get with the NPUs. You've got to go to your legislators and tell them what you're planning to do. Just keep them informed. The historic people have a requirement to know what you're doing, and you have to stay within certain parameters.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing all of that, a lot of times you'll get negative response. But in the end, that negative response ends up assisting in making a great product when everybody gets together and figures out how to make it work.
Yeah, you would think that some of these cities would be great, be glad to see you, but at the same time, you may be taking an industrial zoning that doesn't allow residential, and now you're putting residential in there. So sometimes it's a pretty dramatic zoning change, right?
It's a dramatic zoning change, and sometimes folks have a difficult time understanding what you're trying to do. They think you've lost your mind.
You've lost your mind. But thank you for losing your mind and coming here and doing this, right?
Well, I hope so.
And what are some of the challenges that you find in adaptive reuse projects that people might want to watch out for?
I think the biggest key to adaptive reuse is doing your homework, as in all cases.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go on a project like that, you've got to have people that will, here again, get outside the box, think totally differently, look at something from a reverse angle. An example, down at the Fulton Cotton Mill, which is one of our projects, we had phase one built, designed, we're ready to go forward, and it just didn't feel right. And one day our architect walked in and said, "I figured out where we ought to put the pool. I don't like where it is." And we said, "Where are you going to put it?" He said, "I want to put it right in the middle of that building where it used to be and keep the walls of the building intact."
Interesting.
That's outside the box.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. And that's the kind of thinking you have to have.
Right, and I guess you've got to have contractors too that understand adaptive reuse, and I guess everyone on the team. Well, stay tuned. We'll have more on the U.S. apartment market on the Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. Stay with us.
The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you in part by RealNex, providing a comprehensive suite of powerful commercial real estate tools at an incredibly low cost. Visit realnex.com. That's REALNEX.
Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. Today we're talking about the apartment market. My guest is Tom Aderhold with Aderhold Properties. And Tom, you've had an illustrious career for a long time in this industry. What advice would you give young people who are maybe in the apartment industry now or considering the apartment industry about the sector and the industry?
Well, the apartment industry is a lot of fun. Let's just start off with that. But if you want to get into the industry, obviously you need to learn it from the bottom up. And it seems like most people go into the leasing side or maybe the learning maintenance in the early stages, and then they work their way up. I mean, when you get involved with this stuff, you either love it or hate it,
Mm-hmm.
and most people love it. And so go to your local apartment association, get involved that way, get some education, learn how it all works, and if you're good at what you do, people will find you and you'll move up in the industry.
Oh, that's great advice. I started off in leasing apartments and then managing apartments, and then the company I worked with turned apartments around, and then from there I got a job running a management company where we tripled the size of the growth of the company, and it was just what you just said, from coming up and renovating these communities and leasing them and managing them, I went into sales. And so when I went into sales, I did really well because I knew how to operate and I could see an opportunity. So it is really key to kind of get a good base, right?
Oh, absolutely right. You've got to get into it, and if you don't have a good base, you're dead. You're right.
Yeah. And you've had a great career, as we've said. If you had to do all over again, would you have done anything any differently?
I probably would have gotten more involved in more adaptive reuse earlier. I really didn't know what I was getting into when I first got into it. It was, shall we say, a little scary, but it ends up being outstanding fun to do, and I've really enjoyed it. So.
Well, it's real outside the box, right? So it's just not as cookie cutter. You got to have a little more imagination, right?
Oh yeah, you have to get out there and get in the middle of it. Yeah. I mean, the management, even after you've built it, is really wild. I mean, how often do you run across a 4-story high beehive inside the walls of a building?
Whoa.
That's a little unusual, but, hey, management gets after it.
Yeah. And these adaptive reuse projects, when you're using an existing building that's maybe in an infill location with a lot of things going on around it, there's some advantages to that as compared to new construction, right?
There is. A lot of these buildings are named. It's so you can build on the history. And if you're going to do historic tax credits or anything like that, getting the history is important anyway.
Yeah, so you don't have to make that building known, and you don't have to create an identity. It's got one to start with, right?
It's got one to start with, which means it already has this built-in advertising piece. People that want to be there are going to show up. They're going to become part of the fabric of the buildings, and they'll take ownership of it and help you keep it working right.
That's great. And also you may be around some attractions, right, that kind of work as amenities for the community without having to own them.
Oh, yeah. Well, you think about, you may not have parking lots, you might not have a fitness center, you might not have, a place to convene a meeting or something, but it's all around you, and all you have to do is say, it's here, it's here, and it's here, and come live with us, and you'll be able to enjoy all those amenities free.
What would be a quick closing tip for our listeners related to the apartment industry?
Being a part of the apartment industry is really exciting. I mean, remember, no 2 days are alike.
That's right. I had a lot of fun and still have fun selling apartments. Well, thanks for joining us today, Tom. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us out there on YouTube and on the internet and on our 40 radio stations around the country. We really appreciate you listening. If you are listening to the show on the radio, keep in mind, go to our website and you can see some charts and things that will go along with what we've been talking about today. Be sure and join us next week. We'll talk about the sexy industrial market. You don't want to miss that. Till next week, be sure that you always lead, learn, and laugh, and join us for the Commercial Real Estate Show.
The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty Commercial Brokerage, a great place to do business. Visit bullrealty.com. RealNex, a comprehensive suite of powerful commercial real estate tools at an incredibly low price. Visit realnex.com. That's RealNex. Sozo Web Hosting and Cloud Solutions. Secure, reliable, and worry-free. Visit sozo.com. That's SOZO.com. FIU, Florida International University. Earn your master's in real estate online in as little as 10 months. Visit FIUonline.com. And by France Media, providing exposure to the world of commercial real estate. Visit francemediainc.com. For more information on these great companies or for additional podcasts, videos, or blogs, visit creshow.com.